don't we have more women as guests on QI? You may well ask.
Oh, I know this. No, really.
Say
That's
together.
a female. No, after you.
No.
Is it because women are just not funny? Yeah.
No, that's right. But we're good at other things. We're good at raising kittens and knitting cakes.
Yeah. I've heard this a lot. I've heard that women aren't funny, and I think there's a truth in this. I think that there is a scientific, possibly, relationship between a sense of humour and the male sex organ.
People are always laughing at mine.
Yeah, well, there you are.
Is this to do with the fact that people always say there aren't as many female comedians as there are men? Because you know what? There are loads of female comedians. It's just that we just don't see them because they're systematically rounded up and kept in a pen just outside Harwich. Yes, Harwich. But you can go and see them and you can adopt them online. Yeah. And you can go and you can visit them and you can feed them lines and you might get a joke back sometimes. And then sometimes some of them escape and they disguise themselves as male comedians. But you can always tell which ones the male comedians are, the ones with the beards. Just like Life of Brian.
Bill Bailey.
Bill Bailey.
Clearly a woman.
But you know, it's really rare to be allowed to sit next to a female comedian. I don't know what they worry that our cycles will suddenly synchronise or something.
I'm not. I'm in disguise. I'm Rory Bremner. I'm actually...
Is it because once you get them started, they don't shut up?
Oh, I say. But recent studies appear to have shown an interesting thing, which is that women laugh more, but they laugh less at women. Women laugh more at men. Audiences generally laugh more at men, but women themselves do more laughing.
I don't know. I suppose men are more willing to make prats of themselves.
Yes, I think there is an element to that. I mean, the really, truly great female comedians, of course, do make prats. There's Lucille Ball, people like that.
And there's a strange division that girls have either got to be sort of fey and look slightly stupid, or they can be, like myself, not terribly attractive, wear a pink jacket and go... No, but I mean, there's an interesting interesting thing about... If you think about the kind of Goldie Hawn, for example, played Ditzy, and is one of the most successful Hollywood producers of all time.
Yes, very smart. But played stupid, yeah.
But just as Sandy says, as a woman, they want to sort of categorise you more.
Yes.
The men and the women. What is she doing here? Is she doing the fat man hater thing? Is she doing the fake?
Certainly, in the early days, the sort of modern stand-up movement, when it started in the 80s, almost all female comedians, their subject was being a woman. Whereas male comedians, their subject was not being a man. In other words, women were treating themselves as if they were a minority. When in fact, they're 51% of the population.
Women don't have the history in comedy. You know, in the era of the great silent comics, we were all being tied to railway tracks while they were all being, you know, hanging
happy
from...
days. But
There was, I think it was Germaine Greer who said there are only two things that women don't do as well as men, and that's design dresses and cook. Which is kind of an amusing thing, that actually almost all the great chefs are men and all the great couturiers are men, and yet the one thing we used to think about women is, oh, you know, put them in the kitchen and make them design dresses. So, according to an American study, if we had more women on the show, the panel would laugh more, but the audience would laugh less, perversely. What is unfair about the prize money at Wimbledon? Yes.
they only give it to you if you're really, really good at tennis.
Very damnably unfair.
Nothing.
Really?
Not anymore.
No, it's very unfair.
Is it still unfair?
Yeah, it's very unfair. Women get more money for playing than men.
Yeah.
Oh, per set, you mean? You're talking...
Yeah, men play a lot more tennis and get less money. Yeah, I'll show you how it goes. When it started in 1884, the ladies' champion won a 20-guinea silver flower basket, while the men got a 30-guinea gold trophy. By 2006, 625,000 for Amélie Mauresmo, who played 142 games, versus just £30,000 more for Roger Federer, who played 202 games. And the best women were earning more than the best men because their shorter matches allowed them to compete in both doubles tournaments as well as the singles. The rate per game told the story. In 2005, the final 8 women earned an average of £1,432 per game against the men's 993.
How much do they win now if they win?
It's equal for the
Is it
first prize. The
$500,000?
women's champion
about
gets the
£750,000
same prize as the men's champion, but the men's champion plays a lot more tennis.
Yeah, but to be fair, the women, they've got to come off and make the tea as well.
And women get more from sponsorship.
And
oddly
also,
enough.
$500,000, that's not that much when you think 50% will go to tax, 15% will go to their agent, then they've got to
Isn't that
buy
true
all
for the
their
men as well?
balls, and they've got to buy the sticky stuff to wrap around the racket. That's very expensive.
So do
then
the
it's
men.
the Southfields, they've got to get a travel card. That's
So
only
do the
£6.
men.
They're left with about £1.50 after all that.
Anyway, now that male and female tennis players get the same prize money, it's arguably unfair to men who work harder and longer for less money overall. What use is a goose? Sandy Toksvig.
Is it toilet paper? No, seriously.
Sandy, that is bizarre. Why did you say that?
Well, because I once read this book by Rabelais, I think it's called Gargantua, and he recommended that the best thing for toilet paper was a live goose. And I have yet to check into a five-star hotel without a sense of disappointment.
I have the quotation from Rabelais' Gargantua. I'll give it to you in full, because it's pretty extraordinary. I have, answered Gargantua, by a long and curious experience, found out a means to wipe my bum. The most lordly, the most excellent, and the most convenient that was ever seen. I wiped my tail with a hen, with a cock, with a pullet, with a calfskin, with a hare, with a pigeon, with a cormorant, with an attorney's bag, with a Montero, whatever that is, with a
inside of his toilet, so the whole load.
with a falconer's lure.
And that's why he was thrown out of the pet shop.
You're barred.
Get out! Oh, there's another one, come on!
Told you before.
But to conclude, I say and maintain that of all the tosh cool, arse wisps, bum fodders, tail napkins, bunghole cleansers, and white breeches, there is none in the world comparable to the neck of a goose that is well downed, if you hold her head betwixt your legs. And believe me therein upon mine honour, for you will thereby feel in your knockhole a most wonderful pleasure.
Yes.
Both in regard of the softness of the said down
Yes.
and of the temperate heat of the goose, which is easily communicated to the bum gut and the rest of the inwards, insofar as to come even to the regions of the heart and brains.
So I love that. Why do we need swear words when you've got knockhole?
Yeah.
Can I clear one thing up?
Yep.
Is it alive?
I fear it probably is.
Yes, I believe
said
that
that
adds a frisson
It
to
has to be alive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When he
Because
said
then
it
you
was
can
warm.
turn it and laugh in its face. Ah! We are the master race.
People have been saying for years, why are geese so angry? What's wrong with geese? Why are they so furious?
No, we know.
If there were one animal that I was never going to put anywhere near my bum, it would be a goose.
There's so many other choices of animals you don't want near your
Scorpion.
knockhole.
No, that can be fun.
Get the scorpion to do it. Yeah. And he can get all those tricky little nibble bits.
Scorpions,
He's got the claws.
not absorbent enough. It's not absorbent enough.
What about hedgehog? Is that absorbent? That'll get all the bits and it's absorbent.
Yes.
You could get the bits from the top half and then whip it round and get the top.
Brilliant. You may be onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds absurd, but we have just heard that a man did wipe his ass with a goose.
Yeah. What's going on here?
Ooh.
Yay.
Is it half hen, half cock?
It is exactly half cock, yeah. It is exactly that. It's half hen, half cock. Right
a
down,
freakish accident?
down the middle. It is a freakish
done by
accident.
design.
No,
lab.
it's not done by any kind of scientist. It's a rare
I
enough
literally
thing.
guessed that because of the theme of the programme.
Well done. Yeah, you see, using your male intelligence
Thank
for
you.
once.
Oh, I feel so foolish now.
It's called bilateral gynandromorphic hermaphroditism.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. We're dealing with chromosomes again. All cells on one side of the animal, male. All cells on the right, female. Doesn't happen in humans. Oh, I don't know how that would work.
Quite good fun, though, isn't it?
It would be fun,
If you're at
yes.
a party, you stand that way.
But clownfish. Do you remember? Did you ever see the film Finding Nemo?
Yes,
Yes.
that's a clown.
Yes.
A clownfish.
They're fierce.
They are. There
I
they
know
go.
a bit about them. They have a relationship with that anemone, so that
Yeah,
anemone
they always
is
live in those-
normally
yeah.
poisonous to other fish, but they are immune to it, and they would have their babies in there. And then if you try and get near them, they come at you.
They're quite
fierce.
Yeah, they are.
Territorial.
But do you know about their gender assignations?
Is it variable?
It is sort of up to them, yes. What happens is you have one female and one dominant male, and the rest are all rather weakly and not very fit or sexually active males. And if the female dies, the active male then becomes female, and one of the weakling males becomes the alpha male. It's sort of really weird. Isn't that extraordinary?
How extraordinary.
Yeah, they're very unusual like that. Rather splendid. So the story of Finding Nemo and his father would have been a very different... His father would have been his mother by the time he got to him. The whole thing would have been very odd.
Where have you been? Huh?
It would have been a very strange...
Do you think these animals know that that's what's going to happen to them, or there's just instinct? Do they actually? Does he know? You know, I hope you don't die, because if you die, then I have to have it off with all the other blokes. I'm not into that.
It's a very...
They wake up one morning and go, oh, no, what's happened to me?
The change. The change. It is a very strange thought. Yes, bilateral gynandromorphic hermaphrodites are male on one side, female on the other. Now, what did seagulls contribute to the war effort?
Seagulls?
Seagulls. You know, you give a television technician Photoshop.
Did they steal food out of the hands of the enemy soldiers and they starved to death?
Is it like the parrots in the Eiffel Tower? They kept parrots in the Eiffel Tower in World War II to warn when aircraft were coming, and they go, oh, aircraft coming. That's true, they did.
Surely they'd say, des avions viennent.
Yes, obviously. I was translating for the benefit of the audience. But,
no, it's not quite that. Again, we have to be in the right war.
Which war?
which war are we in?
The First World War we need.
Some sort of
14 to 18.
message service?
No, there was a new threat that had never been seen in warfare before.
Aeroplanes.
That was one. In another medium?
Submarines.
Submarines, yes. And
what is a seagull with a submarine?
Well, let's try and put it all together, shall we? Now, one of the problems with the submarine is you can't see it. There was no sonar, of course, in the First World War. So how do you know where they are?
When they surface.
Well, if they surface, you can see them. But before they surface, another thing that a submarine does is pop up a periscope. So if you could train a seagull to flock towards periscopes by putting food all over the periscopes on your own submarine, so that whenever it saw a periscope, it was associated with food and flocked to it, then whenever there was a submarine with its periscope up, the seagulls would flock towards it, and you'd be on your ship, and you go, there must be a submarine over there because the seagulls are...
Did they train every seagull in the world to do this? Or did
This
they
is the
keep
problem.
flocks
It
of
didn't
seagulls, so
work.
to speak, on ships?
Surely the flaw in the plan is putting food all over your own periscope so you can't see where you're going.
You only do that in the training area.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yeah, but they thought, while we're there, they thought, let's get it, not just train it to recognise the enemy's periscope, but to poo all over it so that it will blank out the lens.
This is a terrible plan.
It is bad. It is a bad plan.
Sounds like something out of Blackadder. That'll do it. That'll work.
It was a grand plan. Did not work, I'm afraid. But partly because the gulls couldn't distinguish between
idiots.
Stupid creatures.
Well, they couldn't distinguish between enemy submarines and home submarines. But more importantly, when I said seagull, I was making an ornithological mistake.
Albatross.
No, they're not seagulls. They're just
Terns?
Gulls.
They're just gulls.
Gulls.
They're not seabirds, gulls. They're land birds. They don't go far out to sea at all. They live on the edge of the land, admittedly, in cliffs and things. But they, you know,
Do they have webbed feet?
So they don't go that far out.
So if you're looking for a submarine...
Is this upsetting your worldview?
If you're looking for a submarine...
Seagulls!
If you're looking for a submarine in the middle of the Atlantic, the bird's going to say, I'm not going that far.
Yes,
I'm not... Yeah.
basically, that's the problem. It just doesn't go that far out. So, yes, during the First World War, seagulls were trained to search out German submarines and then crap on their periscopes.
So describe, if you can, in detail, the world's most exotic tax inspectors.
Not the ones who brought me into Balham once to...
Were you once given a right going over?
We were given a right going over, yeah.
Were you?
I'd taken tax advice from Harry Hill, so it was my own fault. He used to be a doctor, so I thought he knew what he was talking about.
I once spent 3 days with a tax inspector going through, honestly, every single decimal point of everything. And after 3 days, he didn't find anything. And he said to me, "To be honest, Miss Toksvig, I just wanted to meet you."
Wow!
I know, I wanted to...
Was either of them exotic? Did they have a flowery tie or anything about them?
Is it going to be one of those tax haven-y things?
No, it's not a tax haven thing. We're in the Middle East, we're in an Islamic country where people will be very embarrassed by a certain type of person, a transgender person.
Oh.
And in Pakistan, they have a squadron of transgender tax collectors who come basically to embarrass people into paying.
They go, hiya!
Well,
You all right?
First of all, you go to the shop and say, "You owe us this much in tax," and they will simply say, "We refuse to pay." And they say, "OK, then tomorrow we will send in a group of transgender tax collectors who will dance and sing in your shop until you pay."
The crying game.
But only 5% of people pay tax in Pakistan, don't they?
Well, that's why...
So it's not working, is
There's
it?
only so many transgender people in tax. They're very busy. They're building it, "I am what I am" in shops over there in the country.
Well, there is quite a transgender, I suppose one would use the word community, in Pakistan, and they have obviously had it very tough, especially in the more extremist parts of that country where such things are frowned upon. But they are classed together with transvestites and eunuchs, and there's a special word for them, which is hijra.
But how extraordinary for a mother if she sees her son putting on her high heels, and immediately she looks at him now and thinks, tax inspector.
Yes, I know. It is. It's a glamour profession now.
I have to do this, Mother. I'm a tax inspector.
It may well happen.
Nothing else is going on.
Are you wearing that dress this evening?
But there you are.
What would we do here? Morris dancers, I think. That would, outside your shop.
That might,
would make... I'll pay. I will pay, yes.
Basically, the governments of the world are looking for imaginative solutions to raise and, their taxes. And that is one, using transgender people in Karachi. You're looking astonished.
I'm totally astonished.
Yeah.
This is boggling. It's brilliant.
So while living in Pakistan, was there any point at which Osama bin Laden didn't pay his taxes and was in danger of 4 transgender people knocking the door of his massive compound?
No wonder he was hiding.
Really?
I wonder what that man does for a living. What's he done?
I don't
the
know.
whole conversation. 4 of them turned up.
Yeah, 4 of them going through his papers, as you can see.
You come for my tax? I sold you that scarf.
I think that's a counterfeit designer bag that she's wearing as well. I suspect it isn't real.
He's going to get the hit squad.
Yes, he's going to get the full show.
Yeah.
Here come the girls.
We are the hit squad. We are the hit squad, and the first hit will be shares, I believe.
What did the 2001 census reveal to be the 4th largest religion in Britain?
Oh, this is going to go off, but I'm going to say Jedi.
No, the 4th largest number of people put Jedi as their religion, but they were not counted as a religion. Those who put Jedi were put in the box no religion.
They were ruled out for being silly, weren't they?
Well, basically ruled out for being silly. The 4th biggest religion is in fact.
Wait, so Christian's got to be top one still. Muslim second.
Yeah.
Sikh, Hindu.
Yes, 4th is Sikhs. There were 14 Scots who put Sith.
Do you know what when they released a press release about this? It's like something like 37,000 or something.
Yes, it was
37,000 people.
huge, more than that, 390,000.
They released the actual official census form said. What was the number again? Sorry,
390,000.
390,000 was released as 390,000 Jedi. There are.
Who had to return to their birthplace for the census?
This is going to be one of those things where we say Joseph and Mary, and it isn't Joseph and Mary because that isn't what you do. It isn't that at all. Because that we don't.
Woods.
Is it? It's not clever. Always be one step behind. The story is given in one of the Gospels, Luke, where it says that Caesar Augustus, if you remember, in those days issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. And we know this is just simply
It's not
poppycock.
true. The dates are all over the place.
And there was never a census of the entire Roman world. And there is also absolutely no truth in the fact that you had to return to the place of your birth in order to complete a census if there were a census. There is only one reason why Luke would want you to think that Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem to give birth.
To fulfil the prophecy.
To fulfil the prophecy is the point. Is that in the Old Testament it says the Messiah will be born from the stem of Jesse. And that means... what is the stem of Jesse? Do you know what...
There's so many answers, I don't even know where to begin. What time is this broadcast?
King David, in the Bible, was David, son of Jesse. And in the various prophecies, they say the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem from the stem of Jesse, i.e. from the family.
But it's all about Joseph. And Mary, supposedly, is a virgin. So the stem of Jesse's got...
Nothing to
do with it. I know the whole thing doesn't make sense.
What?
Just obviously not. I know, don't let me for a minute.
I spent a lot of time on this as a kid. Don't tell me now. Don't let the scales fall from my eyes now.
It doesn't make any sense anyway. If you were going to count people, I mean, say we had the census here, I'd have to go back to Copenhagen. That would just be ridiculous.
Exactly, that's the point. He's only put in there in order to get him to be born in Bethlehem. And Luke is the one of all the Gospel writers who's most determined to fit in all the prophecies.
And it wasn't laterally, and like a kind of a Bethlehem tourist board type thing where they said, is there any chance you could place this story here? we got the guys with the relics ready to go. The minute you shifted to us, like we can, like Santa Claus Lapland versus Santa Claus North Pole.
Yes.
Right? This is probably exactly an excellent parallel to draw between the two things. But Lapland have just decided that's where Santa lives.
And, of course, the real St. Nicholas came from Turkey.
Of course.
And
lived in the North Pole.
The things we've really been cheated on are the really interesting books that should have been in the Bible. As you probably know, the Bible was assembled over a long period of time, well after the birth of Christ.
Well, it's about 300 years later they got together.
There were the constant conferences going on, deciding on which bits of scripture they should include in an official Bible. And there are some absolutely wonderful ones about the infancy of Christ, which I would like to share with you. And wouldn't this make you more interested in Jesus? This is one here. They're the infancy Gospels, which were rejected from the final cut of the Bible.
Is this like an Easter egg, ironically, on a DVD?
Mary dismounted from her beast and sat down with the child Jesus in her bosom. And there were with Joseph 3 boys and Mary a girl going on the journey along with them. And lo, suddenly there came forth from the cave many dragons. And when the children saw them, they cried out in great terror. Then Jesus went down from the bosom of his mother and stood on his feet before the dragons, and they adored Jesus and thereafter retired.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Isn't that great? No, wouldn't you have paid more attention in Sunday school if there had been more of those?
And you're reading that to us in your Harry Potter voice as well.
I'm sorry, that goes with the territory.
The Bible meets Puff the Magic Dragon.
Yes.
Fantastic.
That is typical. Oh, that lizard. Oh, that's a dragon. That's a dragon. Right?
Yes. What did Prince Albert invent?
Oh, a cock ring.
The comb over.
There was bizarrely, there was something he actually did invent, which is not quite as intimate as the item of piercing jewellery that you referred to.
A cutlass.
No. He and Victoria married, they were very young, they were 20 years old, and she was very nervous, and she wrote a diary, as you may know, and it was quite an intimate diary, and she described the wedding night, the actual events, not the full physical details, but she described the experience as both gratifying and bewildering. Isn't that rather wonderful?
We've all been there.
So anyway, they enjoyed enough to have 9 children, and what he invented was a device that allowed them to lock the bedroom door from the bed, to give them marital privacy. Isn't that rather splendid? Oh. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Excuse me while I just...
Yeah. So, but he wore very tight trousers, and this myth grew up in the middle of the 20th century that he somehow anchored his penis to one side of his body or another by means of some sort of ring that was therefore able to pull it backwards so that it wasn't on show at parties because he was a Victorian and it would have been rude wearing such tight trousers. But there is no... It went up by 57% during the Blitz.
Oh. Oi, oi!
Yeah.
House prices?
Was
it Mother Brown's knees?
By 57%. 67%.
Oh, they were always up listening to the Cockneys during the Blitz.
Yeah.
Always up.
Yeah.
The birth rate?
No.
Grave robbing?
Crime.
Oh.
Crime went up a huge amount during the Blitz.
Sorry, do you count crime as dropping bombs? Because if that...
No,
if that's listed as a crime, then there was a lot of that
It's
going
not
on.
a crime in actual law, in fact, to do that, unfortunately.
Crime?
But no, I'm talking about Londoners' crime, yeah. Mad Frankie Fraser actually said it was just terrible. It was a tragedy when Hitler surrendered because wartime London was a criminal's paradise, is the way he put it. It was. I mean, all he had to do was get an ARP warden, you know, like Hodges in Dad's Army. Napoleon, all that. You put one of those on and people would just obey you, and a tin hat with a W on it. And people would actually help them load their cars with stuff they'd stolen. So, here, come here, help me load this car. They go, oh, yes, because you're a warden. I mean, it was
Are you suggesting that's what the Queen Mother was doing in the East End?
Not...
My granddad was one of those.
Was he an ARP warden?
Well, he says that.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
So was it mainly...
There was looting. It was looting, but there's also scams. There was one fellow called Handy who made a claim for his house being bombed out, for which he got £500, 19 times before they caught on to him. Yeah. And, of course, ordinary people also were committing crimes through ration books. People who didn't think of themselves as criminals were, you know, black marketeering or involving themselves in the black market. But, yeah, generally speaking, it was a very good time to be a criminal because the police and everybody were concerned, obviously, with bombs falling on houses and people dying in incendiary bombs.
Is there truth in the... Because I read a thing about the... Well, the house would be bombed and people would be dead and then people would come and steal watches and things and things.
I'm afraid so, yeah.
It's really sort of grisly...
I'm afraid it is, because we think of it as our finest hour and, you know, the Blitz spirit and so on, but unfortunately there's always human nature, there's always another side to it. And, of course, there was a huge amount of bravery and camaraderie and communal spirit and so on, but there was also, sadly, the darker side. Which best-selling children's author has something to say on rabid dogs, suicide victims, slaughtering cattle, and how to tie your shoelaces? Yes, Steve.
Katie Price.
It's a wild stab in the dark.
That was the title of her second book.
Was it How to Slaughter Cattle?
Yeah.
Yeah. This has probably sold 150 million copies since its first publication.
Sorry, is it in the children's book?
It's book written for children, yeah.
Look at the boys looking
Which
round
part
at the
of
dog's
Timmy
genitals.
are you looking at? He is Dick. That's Dick there on the left.
Dick.
Dick, Anne and Julian.
Yeah, Julian
and Dick is looking at Timmy's bits.
Girls, eyes forward, boys going, hello.
You see, even he did like you. So...
It's an old English book?
Published in, in the Edwardian era.
We're looking at the name of the book of the author.
The name of the author was Robert, later Lord Baden-Powell.
Oh, the Scouting for Boys.
Scouting for Boys is the right answer.
Scouting for Boys? It's got something on suicide.
It has. It has an amazing entry on suicide. Maybe you'd like to hear it.
I would love to hear it.
When a man has gone so far as to attempt suicide, they don't count women for some reason, a scout should know what to do with him. In a case where the would-be suicide has taken poison, give milk and make him vomit, which is done by tickling the inside of the throat with a finger or a feather. In the case of hanging, cut down the body at once, taking care to support it with one arm while cutting the cord. A tenderfoot, which is scouting for novice...
They make that sound very simple.
It does, doesn't it? A novice is sometimes inclined to be timid about handling an insensible man or dead man, or even seeing blood. Well, he won't be much use till he gets over such nonsense. There you are. Slaughtering cattle, advice to young boys on how to slaughter cattle. If you're a beginner in slaughtering with a knife, it's sometimes useful to first drop the animal insensible by a heavy blow with a big hammer or the back of a felling axe on top of the head.
Kindest thing to do, really.
Stopping a runaway horse?
He doesn't give advice on that, does he?
He does, yes.
Lie down.
That would stop the horse.
Oh, no, they don't tread on you.
No,
Oh, I know, play dead.
How would that stop the horse?
I'm thinking of ferocious grizzly bear again, aren't I?
And what you don't do is stand in front of it waving your arms. That's the mistake to make. What you should do is go to the side and basically just ease it towards the side of a wall or the side of a house and then catch
When it's running, you ease a running horse to the side of a wall. Don't worry, lads, I'll just ease this running horse to the side of a wall.
You'll see around the corner of its eye and it will be pushed towards and it will slow it down naturally, according to Baden-Powell.
Give us a hand. I can't. Uncle Pete's hung himself.
What about saving someone who's fallen in front of a train?
Oh, don't...
Oh, well, I know this. You ease the train up against a wall.
If the train is very close, lie flat between the rails, make the man do the same till the train passes over, while everyone else will be running about screaming and excited and doing nothing.
You're supposed to jump on the track with him?
Yeah.
And push his head down?
Yeah, keep
yes,
lie
I'm going to
flat.
do that,
Does that work, though? Is there such a big gap between the wheels that you...
It does in movies, but I wouldn't be the one to try it.
That'd be great if you hung yourself and then a scout cut you down and you went, oh, well, don't worry, I'll jump under a train.
And again...
He's here again! All right, mate.
Cricketer Thomas White invent in 1771?
The Yorker.
The Yorker?
Yeah.
To hear a German say the Yorker... Gives
I don't know what it means.
It's a fully pitched up ball, but it's well good. Great to hear
What's
a German.
What's googly then?
Yeah. Googly is
again.
Googly is a leg spinner's off spin. It's disguised. It's
Comes at the back. And how does the Duck vs. Lewis method work?
Oh, nobody knows that. That's far too complicated. No, he didn't invent any particular type of bowling or of batting, but he looked at the laws of cricket and he noted that there was a rather glaring omission, and he thought he thought, splendid.
Oh, the big bat. Did he have a big bat?
Yes, he came with a bat that was wider than the wicket. This enormous bat. It was Chertsey versus Hambledon, which is the equivalent of Surrey versus Hampshire. So after 1774, they incorporated a law that said a bat must be no wider than 4.5 inches. But this fellow, Thomas White, I suppose you could call him a cheat, but he was within the laws of the game as they were at the time. And there were others. There's an American footballer called Lester Hayes. Does that ring any bells with you? Of the Oakland Raiders, who had such success as a catcher in the late 70s that he was the Defensive Player of the Year. But the reason was that he covered his hands and gloves with an adhesive called Stickum. And he actually admitted, he said, without Stickum, I couldn't catch a cold in Antarctica.
That's so clearly cheating. They must have spotted
Well, there was no rule against
There was no rule.
They had to introduce one, which there now is. There was a jockey at Belmont in New York who, in 1923, died of a heart attack when on a horse and won. The horse won.
Oh, right.
And, of course, the bookies didn't want to pay out. But there was a rule that said the jockey had to be in the saddle for it. There was no rule that said he had to be alive.
Well, he was a brilliant jockey, then, if he clung on even though he was dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Keep going!
Yeah.
So the lucky punters were paid out. This little example of a sort of optical illusion here. So if you photograph it in the right way, as you're about to see, the eye plays extraordinary tricks on you. So there it is Einstein. There he is in profile. Wow. And there's the inverted bit, but hello. Oh, your eye tells you that's poking outwards, and yet it isn't. That's the inside bit. And your eye refuses to believe it until you get to that.
That's great.
Oh, you're twisting my melon, man.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Why does it do that? Why?
Well, it does that because your brain is programmed to recognise human faces, and it's one of the first things babies do is look at faces, and you expect to see a face, and even though you know it isn't a real face, your brain fills in the...
I did it again.
It's an astonishing illusion.
Does this, Stephen, does it only work with Einstein? No. Would it work with another man?
It would work with any human being. It is really creepy. It's amazing, isn't it?
But it's done it. I can't believe it did the same trick twice.
I know, the point is...
Right, listen, we're not going to fall for it this time.
And yes...
OK, no way. Not 3 times on the run.
Outside. This is going to be inside, Lee. Inside. It's outside.
How do you do it?
Wow.
How do you do it? It's so clever, isn't it?
He's so clever.
It is literally... We literally filmed this. I mean, you can see... That's all it is.
This is a great trick. I might cut my head in half and scoop out my brain.
It was a wonderful thing. It would make the most wonderful blancmange or something, wouldn't it?
Are we going to bother with the rest of the show? Because I could happily just...
Watch it go.
I mean, it's lovely chatting and everything, and I love what we do, but let's just...
You're hypnotised.
Have you got any others apart from Einstein?
No, I tell you what we can do. We can make the Queen happy or sad.
Oh.
We've got a £5 note. You can do this with your own £5 notes, but we'll give you the demonstration.
OK.
There it is. You do a little fold. When might you engage in paradoxical undressing?
So you're undressing, but you're actually dressing?
No, it's not really paradoxical.
Is it physics or some physics or mathematics?
No.
Is it counterintuitive undressing?
That's much more what it is.
So taking your clothes off if Jeremy Clarkson asks you? would be...
Meow.
Would be silly.
It's taking your clothes off when taking your clothes off looks like the worst possible idea you could have.
Is it some effect of hypothermia? Is it some mental thing that does to you?
It may be mental, it may be physical. It's not quite understood, but one of the...
Oh, that is very unpleasant.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the previous picture.
Yeah, it's one of the peculiar side effects of hypothermia when you're actually dying of cold.
You feel
hot. Almost the last thing you do, very commonly, not always, is take all your clothes off. And people think it may be a delusional thing, but it also is part of the fact that your blood vessels near your skin tend to just give up and open. And it may be that people feel very hot. Because you never survive once you've got to that stage, you can't actually ask someone why they did it. But it is a common thing for people to do, and they're
I went in freezing water once in New Zealand, and I screamed a lot and swam about a bit, and then I got out and I was completely shocking, livid pink, and felt hot. So that was perhaps seconds from death, then.
Maybe you were. Maybe you're one of the few who survived it.
Yeah.
Well, what sort of temperature do you think would start you on the road to hypothermia? Body temperature, I don't mean outside temperature.
What's the temperature in here?
I'd say pretty quickly. I don't think you'd have to drop much. Maybe 4 or 5 degrees below normal body
Basically, that's right, 35 degrees Celsius, once your body temperature starts to get below that. And interestingly, in the coldest cities in the world, hypothermia is very rare. It's much more common in places like Britain, where it doesn't get very cold at all. There's a very remarkable Briton called Lewis Pugh. Have you heard of Lewis Pugh? He's a man who's able to control his own body temperature. He does endurance cold swimming. As far as we know, he's the only person known to science who can do what he can do. He can swim in cold conditions unlike anybody else, and he is able to raise his body temperature at will. It's completely startling. He can stop himself shivering. He is really an incredible figure, and we contacted him. And he said that he thought he could do this...
He's not coming in here because it's freezing.
He said he thought he could do this because he had trained himself, as it were, over years and years and years to do these endurance swims in incredibly cold waters. And that his body, as it were, saw it coming and prepared for it. That was his only explanation. But
cold water has a bad effect on a boy. I mean, he looks good there. I bet he doesn't fill his swimming trunks when he gets home.
Well, maybe that. Now it's time for a round of quick-fire hypotheticals.
Quickfire hypotheticals!
So, all you have to do is tell me the first thing that comes into your head, basically, all right? It's a quick-fire hypothetical question. Let's say you found a fallen tree in the forest, right? Obviously, it fell down before you arrived, but did it make a sound as it fell?
No.
Well, no one's going to say yes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, do you know where this question comes from, as it were?
It's a
Bishop
famous...
Berkeley.
Bishop Berkeley, yeah.
Philosophical question, isn't it?
That if there's no one to hear a sound...
Is there a sound?
Is there a sound? It depends so much what you mean by sound, doesn't it?
Well, there isn't, because sound is the vibration of the eardrum. There is no sound if there's no one to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, it depends, though, because part of the definition of sound is that there has to be a recipient for the sound.
Yeah.
Isn't there? There's the thing that makes the noise, and there's the transmission of the noise, and then there's the reception of the noise.
Yeah.
But if there's no reception of the noise, then maybe the noise doesn't exist.
Other things are still vibrating, but whether that vibration counts as a sound or not is
But when the forest
the
ever
definition
empty?
of sound is what happens in the ear. There isn't any sound if there's no one to hear it.
It's a mooty point.
There's a speed of sound, and it's only what happens in the ear. Well, how do you get that speed between that and your ear?
Do you know,
maybe by the time that tree's fallen, you got there, that sound's halfway around the world and making someone else very nervous. Ah!
Stephen, are you sure about this?
Well, no one is sure. That is the point. That's why it's a hypothetical. No one knows. I mean, to a semanticist or a neurologist, they may say that sound is that, but to a physicist, they would say the propagation of sound waves is sound. Whether or not there is an ear to vibrate, it is a sound wave. And if it's a sound wave...
I disagree that they are sound waves, because if you can't...
You may disagree, but you're welcome to. But you're not...
Vibrations, they only become a sound wave when there's an ear to receive it. It's rather like... Do you remember we talked about a thing that really astonished me? Did you know that light's invisible? It's the most extraordinary thing. If you, in a dark vacuum, if you shoot a beam of light across the eyeballs like that, you can't see it. because you can only see what light hits. And it's the same thing, but people said, but that's a stupid answer because the definition of light is something that goes into your eye and is then received. Until it does that, it's not light.
So. But we have all kinds of things like not ears, for example. Are you saying that it's not sound if it registers on a recording device that is left there without a human there? That it's bending the needle of a recording device? Does the machine not hear? Is it not a sound wave that is actually causing the machine to register?
Well, but in Bishop Berkeley, so...
I talked about you, not about Bishop Berkeley entering the field. The point is, it's not as simple as just to say yes or no. That's why it's a good question. It's a good question. We would have unfairly forfeited someone who said yes just as much as somebody who said no.
I thought you said there was no right answer to this question.
There is no... That's why I said there is. That's why it's a good question. There is no right answer. So your yes and your no are both... That's
whatever I said, it would be...
Yeah, I'm afraid
so. If the tree fell down and there was no one there to see it fall, it should still be upright.
Very true.
My only conclusion.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Alan, are you keeping well?
Yeah. He conquered Everest. What did Edmund Hillary do for an encore?
He had a massive teeth off with Sherpa tensing. I can notice no other consequence. Although my teeth have grown. Look at my teeth. Mine too, Edmund. Mine too.
Look at this. Ready? Ready?
You do look like him.
Did he become a Welsh comedian?
No. Me or him?
Hey.
No, I do look a bit like him, actually, but you can't... There's not a lot you can do with it.
Not really.
You've got to do a Kiwi accent.
Yeah, I mean, I've climbed a few mountains in my time, sure I have, but it's not something I like to go on a bit. I'm struggling because...
These are going to work there, right? Sorry, I apologise. I apologise to any New Zealanders watching. He's trying to do the fish and chips.
The Australians, they don't say Elvis, they say Ilvis.
Yeah.
Ilvis.
Yeah. And I heard that New Zealanders are traditionally quite sort of puritanical, and it's quite hard for them even to say the word six. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Oh, I can't say it. 6. There's a famous graffiti that was seen in Melbourne, which was looked like a rugby score. It's Australia 6, New Zealand 7, which, of course, they would pronounce as Australia sucks, New Zealand's hidden. You see? Isn't that clever?
It doesn't really travel, does it?
No, it doesn't. No.
I should tell you, when this photograph was taken, I'll never forget it, we'd had a wonderful day, and I'd just said a lovely joke to my good friend there next to me, and as you can see, he was pissing himself laughing.
And his name was?
His name was Bert.
His name was?
Sherpa tensing.
Sherpa tensing Norgay.
Well, yes, but to his friends.
Isn't it cheating having somebody carry your luggage for you?
No. Now, which one of them got to the peak first?
Sherpa.
Tensing.
No.
No?
Hillary.
Edmund Hillary.
Edmund Hillary got there first. And not only that...
Were they racing?
No, they're not sure. They were friends. And Tenzing Norgay wrote in his autobiography that Hillary got to the top first, and that Hillary said, no, we tell everybody we got there together. Then the King of Nepal said in a rather angry statement, everybody knows that Sherpa Tenzing got there first, and Hillary didn't say a word. He didn't correct him. He was very noble about it.
Yes.
And he actually devoted most of his life to raising money for the Nepalese people. 25 schools, his charity and various things. So he was a very good man. But what did he do after Everest?
He went to the bottom of the sea.
No.
Did he climb something else?
No, he didn't. Well, he sort of did, because it was in the Himalayas, but he went on an expedition.
He took an incredible challenge that tested the extremes of physical endurance.
Not really. It was a bit of a wild goose chase.
Was he looking for the Yeti?
He was looking for the Yeti. He went on a Yeti hunt. He concluded that the thing didn't exist, but this is him preparing, looking slightly less like Rob in that angle.
Who does he look like there? Edmund Hillary.
Edmund Hillary, basically, yeah.
He does look awkward. He does look like, yes, I am going to marry her because I love her.
I'm standing by her.
In that picture, I look more like the chap in the drawing, actually.
Does he really think that it existed? I mean...
He wanted to settle the matter, or at least to attempt to settle the matter, and of course they didn't find that one. But one thing that they discovered, of course, is this footprint business. And in shadows, a fox print is small, but as it gets into a sunny area, it gets elongated as it melts along. And a human footprint can go up to 21 inches. And that seems to be an explanation for some of the footprint stories. It's simply that.
They're like the crop circles of the Himalayas, aren't
Kind
they?
of are. On the other hand, to be fair, one of the members said we were probably too noisy because they didn't see a snow leopard, and we know snow leopards do exist. So it doesn't prove that they do.
Are you suggesting only an expedition that was fantastically quiet might find it?
Well, what I'm saying... yes, basically.
Lost their mobile signal. And hello, yeah, we're nearly at the top. You're breaking, I'm sorry.
We're looking for the Yeti!
Actually, ironically, you get fantastic mobile coverage when you're up high up mountains. If you ever go on a skiing holiday, oh, good God, what's that?
An artist's impression of a thing that doesn't exist. That's what some people
Edmund
thought the
Hillary
Yeti might look like.
After looking for a Yeti for 20 years.
Some people thought that actually they were on a spying mission because two of the people that were with him were rocket experts and that they were spying on Chinese rocket installations in Tibet. Who knows?
But what we think that might still... Some people now think that may have been what they were doing.
Yes, they still think that's actually what they were doing, yeah. So, there you are. That's basically the answer. He went to look for a Yeti after conquering Everest in '53. Edmund Hillary went in search of the abominable snowman. Perhaps you can tell me which side Yorkshire was on in the Wars of the Roses.
Well, there's the White Roses, Yorkshire.
Yeah. Well, it's not the counties, though, is it? It's just the royal houses.
That's the point, exactly. Yorkshire has no more to do with the House of York than Kent or Norfolk.
It's the Duke of York versus the Duke of Lancaster.
Yes, exactly. The point is, in fact, most people who lived in Yorkshire were Lancastrians. In fact, they favoured the Lancastrian cause.
But now,
Henry
of
VII,
course,
I mean.
people in Yorkshire very much associate with the White Rose and the Yorkists.
Well, because it's become the symbol of the county and the cricket match between the two counties is known as the Roses match and so on, but you're right. And talking of Yorkshire, there are other things that are called Yorkshire that aren't particularly Yorkshire. Can you think of one?
Pudding?
Yorkshire pudding is not a thing that was invented in Yorkshire, although people from Yorkshire are... Hello.
Oh, yes, this was really annoying. That Yorkshire, but that they're trying to say... that, like, you can't make, champagne outside the Champagne region or Stilton outside a certain region, that you wouldn't be allowed to make something and call it a Yorkshire pudding outside Yorkshire, which is basically entirely an idea cooked up entirely by people who manufacture those horrible frozen Yorkshire pudding.
You're right to be angry. Yes, it's called a protected designation of origin, a PDO. And Champagne, as you rightly say, has it. Parma ham has it. You can't call it Parma ham unless it comes from Parma.
But making Yorkshire pudding one of those things would be like making a sandwich.
Yes, I know. You had to come from Sandwich in Kent.
Yeah, you had to go to Marks and Spencer's in Sandwich for the authentic sandwich.
Yeah. But give me some other British PDO protected foods.
There's one, I think that Stilton is one.
Stilton, where must it come from?
But it can't come, for example, from Stilton.
No, that's quite right.
The town of Stilton, which the cheese is named after, the cheese is named after it because that's where the cheese was sold, not where it was manufactured. Exactly. So the designated area that you make it in with bits of Leicestershire, I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway, Stilton's not in it.
Mostly around the Melton Mowbray area.
What about pork pies then? Melton Mowbray pork pies?
I guess you can't call it a Melton Mowbray pork pie. I don't know if that's a PDO.
Do you know that the chairman of the Pork Pie Association is vegetarian?
I didn't know that.
Yes, I interviewed him and I said, because he brought pork pies for us to try, and I said, go on then, Tucky. And he said, oh, no, thanks very much, I'm vegetarian.
That's very peculiar.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yes, what?
He's angry now.
No, I am absolutely sure. What's this man done with his life? You can't, on the one hand, say it's wrong to eat animals and then dedicate your professional life to the marketing of ground-up pig.
It's like...
You've got a point.
It's just a sort of pacifist nuclear weapons manufacturer.
But not all vegetarians are vegetarians because they don't agree with the slaughtering of animals. Some do it because they just don't like the taste.
Maybe he thought it was a job being chairman of Pork Pie Hats.
Yes. Or of lying.
Or of lying.
Yeah. Yes, telling porkies.
He thought he's being a spy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
I've got to tell porkies. I've got to tell pork pies.
I'm going to destroy the pork pie business from the inside.
Well, there you are. The fact is, the more Yorkshire folk supported the Lancastrians than the Yorkists. What was regularly smuggled into the USA from Canada for the traditional Burns Night celebrations?
Oh, what do they have at Burns Night celebrations? Haggises?
Is the right answer.
Thank you.
We thought you might be tempted to say whiskey, but this is from 1989 up until 2010. Haggises were smuggled from Canada
into America. Why might this be?
Because the Americans don't approve of inedible food coming.
It's a niche.
Well, why? I can't say.
It's one element inside the haggis that was contraband. There it is. What's the outer casing?
Stomach.
A sheep's stomach. And inside is...
It's called pluck. Pluck is the correct word for the bits of the heart. Is it the heart, liver and...
Offal, certainly, bits of that, but one particular... Lungs, which is known as, in the butcher's trade, as the lights, and those were outlawed in America because of BSE and indeed their own problems. Yes. You couldn't eat them. And so there was a trade in smuggled Canadian haggis. What do we know about the haggis? Which nation invented the haggis?
I wonder if we're not responsible.
You think it might be Danes?
It might be.
Well, actually, the first reference to it in the British Isles is actually in Lancashire. But there are lots of theories about where the haggis comes from.
Offal comes from Danish. It is from the Danish word for rubbish. Affal is...
oh, really?
Yeah, so there must be some hideous Scandinavian connection.
Well, there are some who think that it was Vikings who brought it over to Britain.
But it comes from Lancashire, does it?
Well, that's the first reference to it, yeah.
Do you know the Burns address to the haggis?
Yes, it's a poem.
It's a poem which on Burns night, at a Burns supper, somebody would address it, and it comes in, that's obviously been cut open, as you can see, but before it's cut, someone addresses it, and it starts with, "Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the Puddin race, aboon them all you take your place, pains tripe or therm, wheeler you wordy, o' grace as lang's my erm." And a pal of mine was saying... Thank you. But... and then it is being typed in. But somebody I know was doing a Burns supper abroad, and they had sent the address over to Germany, and it was translated into German, but the German translated it back, and the line, instead of "great chieftain of the Puddin race," was translated back as "mighty Führer of the sausage people."
Should stay. It's a lot better than great chieftain of the pudding race. Mighty Führer of the sausage people. What is the date of Burns Night?
January 25th.
Yes, it's his birthday. I love the way you get all your celebrations in one corner of the year, so that being Scottish, you have, like, Christmas, craziness, and then Hogmanay, insanity, Burns Night 3 weeks later, and then for the rest of the year, nothing. Just a long hangover. Abstinence, dullness. But there is no poet, really, that has the same level of affection in the English culture. We obviously venerate Shakespeare in different ways, or some people resent him because of school, but there's a deep level of love for Burns, is there not?
Absolutely. I mean, he was a great man and very forward-thinking. He was completely and utterly anti-slave trade.
Yes.
So much so that if you go to the Burns Museum, there's a photograph of Muhammad Ali, who came over to Scotland and came up and visited it because he was a student of Burns because of the humanitarian work that he had done, you know, 150 years ago. Yeah, and he loves haggis. I love all you sausage people, he used to say.
He succeeded Harold as King of England in 1066.
Is there a trick to it?
No, it's just you need to name the person who succeeded Harold as king in 1066.
Well, was it the
Don't
bastard?
trust him.
The trick is to know. The trick is to know the answer.
I don't trust you at all.
Is it the bastard then?
Who's the bastard? Oh dear. Oh, it was not a trick.
Did England cease to exist in some way, or was it changed in name?
There was another Saxon claimant who was nominally king for 45 seconds or something.
Well, for a few months. Right. Yes. Edgar Atheling. And he was 15 years old. But Saxon kings were... How did you become a king if you were Saxon?
Did you have to be sort of
You had to be
nominated?
from one of the 5 or 6 families, and then you'd be elected. Yeah.
Like by what? By votes? They would vote for you?
Yes. Edgar the Atheling. He was 15 years old, but of course William had won the battle, and so he came after him, and he tried to fight. He couldn't raise an army, he went abroad, didn't really live a very
15,
successful life.
So he wouldn't have been able to do anything, would he, really?
Edgar the Atheling was proclaimed king by the English after the death of Harold and reigned for 2 months before William was crowned.